On this week's Eastern Conference edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, we've got 8 days left of regular season play, and there's still 2 empty spots in the Eastern Conference playoff race. We'll discuss who has the inside track on those, plus some important news out of Arizona. That's all coming up on today's edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. Your team every day.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, welcome inside another edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, where we have your team every day, local experts on the biggest stories. Every Wednesday, we're here discussing the Eastern Conference. I'm Ross Levitan. You can find me 5 days a week over at Locked On Ottawa Senators. And as always, for the first time in 3 weeks, from Locked On Maple Leafs, it is Mike DiStefano. It's the Battle of Ontario edition. One of our teams is gearing up for the playoffs, and well, no spoilers, but on Locked On Senators today, we discussed the NHL draft. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL, and get $20 off your first ticketing purchase. Mikey, great to see you again. It's been a while. We kind of alternated vacations there, but we're ready to go, fired up into the playoffs.
We are, and I'm super stoked that you are back and returning. Gil was wonderful the last couple of weeks filling in for you, but I do got to ask, because you said that you had a little road trip, you and Pilsy, and you went to a couple of games. I know you were at the game in Minnesota
Yes.
at the XL Energy, and you said elite arena. Would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, definitely. So what we did, I live in Winnipeg now from Ottawa, and the Sens come out here every year, and I always make sure to go to those games in Winnipeg at least. And this year was kind of funny because the Senators, outside of the Eastern time zone against the Western Conference, they were 0-13-1 with 2 games remaining. They were 0-13-1, 0 wins. But Pilsy and I, my co-host on Locked On Senators, when we go to games together, we were 12-0-1 heading in. So something had to give. Something had to give. And in Winnipeg, Brady Tkachuk scores late in the game. They get the win. That atmosphere, I mean, it's a Canadian hockey game atmosphere. Everybody, every single hit, every giveaway, there's the gasps of the crowd. It was a Hockey Night in Canada game as well. So Saturday night, it was great theater. It ended with a 6-on-3 offensive zone draw. It looked like, everybody coming at you at once. So then when Ottawa won, I'm obviously friendly chirping with everyone in the section. I said, what'd you guys need? 8-on-3, 9-on-3? What would have gotten it done? But then we went down to Minnesota. It's about a 7-hour drive. And I don't know if anyone listening has been to the XL Energy Center, but it's just a completely different feel. Like in Toronto and Ottawa, like the 100s are about 15 to 18 rows, right? Like you just kind of, it's almost the same amount of rows in the 100s as the 300s, if not more upstairs. In Minnesota, the 100 level, the lower bowl is 30 rows back. So it creates this entire different atmosphere. And it was just like an interior of a building I'd never seen. I think I've been to about 12 or 13 NHL rinks, but Mikey, you got to get to the XL Energy Center. It's in a cool little area, St. Paul. Now, maybe a bit of crime, I've been told, but we didn't see much of anything. We just saw great bars, great architecture there. Big architecture guy, Mikey. But I had a great time at the XL Energy Center. What a blast that is. And our 13-0-1 streak ended because Minnie got the win.
I was going to say, did you remain intact? I couldn't remember who won that game, but you saw our boy Seth Tupel also.
Yeah.
Locked On Wild. So
not only that, but he does Locked On Western Conference. So you would have just heard him yesterday here on this channel. Absolute beauty. He was gracious in victory, and we sat together at the game too, and all just hung out. It was good times.
Love it. Get your tickets via Gametime. Of course you did.
I did. Of course I did. And not only that, I timed it perfectly last minute, because some people stress about getting tickets last minute. It was the best way to do it. I was tracking the price for about a week. I knew we were going to get $20 off by using code LOCKEDONNHL. And with I think I was on the way to the bar before going to the game, and I said, all right, it's time. Like, we need tickets now. And the price had gone down 18% from when I looked the week before. So it was a great time. Back of the 100s, penalty box side, my favorite place to sit in any arena. I absolutely had a blast, and Gametime's the best. And you're using Gametime too, but we'll save that for the ad read. But it's the time of year, man. The sun's out. We're both in Canada, so we had the dark winter. Once you get daylight savings, and say what you want about changing the time and everything, but now it's light out later on into the evening. It feels like playoff hockey's around the corner. It really does.
It does, man. It really does. And like, I don't know about you, but this last, I don't know, few weeks has been incredible to watch. Like every night it's been a story after story after story. And, I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine the other day, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. But is this like the most exciting final few weeks of an NHL season that you can remember? Like, you look at every race possible, and there is one, whether it's for the President's Trophy, whether if it's for the division race, whether it's for these wild card games, whether it's for,
Even home
here
ice.
in Toronto, the Matthews race to 70 is a big time local story. You've got potentially not one, but two players now in McDavid and Kucherov trying to get to 100 assists. You've got the race for the Art Ross, race for the MVP, the Ted Lindsay's up for grabs. Like, it seems like this final few weeks is like it's going to settle a lot. And I can't remember the last time that I've been so dialed in and locked in the last couple of weeks of a regular season.
And I'm going to pick up on where you said the playoff spots that are still available in the East. It was just last year that it was like a 20-plus point gap between the final playoff spot and the rest of them. So to have this drama going into the last week of the season is amazing. How about Nathan McKinnon last night? A hat trick to hit 50. Just unreal storylines, like you said, all across. And you hear the local story in Winnipeg, too. It's like, you're probably playing Colorado. You need home ice. Like, even though those teams are set as a matchup, it's like home ice is still up for grabs. 2 points separate the two teams, and they play on Saturday. So getting these divisional games late in the season, it's just going to make for amazing theater. But the individual accolades that are hyping up all across the league, I really hope that Connor McDavid can play a couple more games. We know he's day-to-day now, lower body injury, no update whether he's going to play tonight. We're recording early on Wednesday morning. Edmonton takes on Vegas because, like, he's 9 points back in the Art Ross race. I don't think he hits Kucherov after Kuch had another, 3-point night last night with Tampa and their win. And my goodness, Tampa Bay, the team that just won't roll over and die. Andre Vasilevsky, that's actually where I want to take this conversation, because next segment we'll get into the teams that are battling for the final playoff spots, one spot in the Metropolitan Division and the second wildcard spot. But like, the Tampa Bay Lightning are getting prime Vasilevsky back, and that could be the difference, whether them being an easy out and them being legit cup contender.
100%. And you look at what this team has been able to do since about the trade deadline. They've arguably been like the best team in hockey. They've been unbelievable since then. They've got an 11-2-1 record, and their goal differential has been stellar. Plus 12, no, plus oh geez, I can't even do the quick math. They've scored 62 goals. They've only allowed 64 or 34. So like, what's that? That's 28 goal differential, I believe, if my quick maths is correct. So plus 28 goal differential in 14 games. They're averaging 2 more goals. Yeah, there's the quick math there. If you look at goals for and goals against per game, 2 more goals than their opposition per game since the NHL trade deadline. And obviously a big reason for it has been Andre Vasilevsky, but Duke Kucherov is making like crazy. The way that guy is just putting up points and dragging this team also. Like, they're getting the goaltending obviously with that guy. But what Kucherov is doing, even Braden Point is averaging like a goal a game since the deadline as well. But special teams have been key too. Their penalty kills at 93%. Their power play has been 35% since then. It's really been a full team effort for Tampa Bay, and that's a team that's really starting to peak at the right time. That's a scary squad in the next couple of weeks. I would not want to be. It looks like the Boston Bruins are likely to be the team that will end up having to host them in round one.
Good
I do
luck.
not envy. Do not envy the Boston Bruins.
I'm telling you right now, I'm betting on the Tampa Bay Lightning in that series.
Dude, I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be surprised if Tampa, plows through Boston and books a ticket into round 2. But the way
Not
that
at
this
all.
team is playing, dude, Kucherov has 96 assists. Like all season, we're talking about could McDavid get to 100? Could he get to 100? And yeah, he could. He's sitting on 99, and the expectation is he'll get into at least one more game to try and get to 100. But Kucherov quietly over the last 6 games, I was looking it up, 14 assists in his last 6 games. He's sitting with 96 assists now with 4 games to go. He had 3 last night in a win over Columbus. Like the guy is unbelievable. He's got assists, I think, in like 6 or 7 straight games.
Well, guess who has goals in 6 straight games? Steven Stamkos coming out of the clouds, 10 goals in his last 6 games. 3 last night, 2 the game before, 2 the game before that, and 1-1-1 in the 3 previous.
That's what I mean. It's like the spine of this team are all playing their best hockey at the right time, whether it's Stamkos point.
Dude, Duclair, what a deadline pickup.
Yeah, Duclair's been great for them throughout, starting to put some pucks in the back of the net as well lately. And obviously, the guy,
23 goals.
Lots of dudes are having a lot of success with that team, but it does come down to the goaltender and how he plays, and he's rounding into form after a bit of a tough start coming off that injury. He's getting back to the boogeyman, the Vasilevsky of old, and that's great if you're a Tampa fan. Bad if you're a fan of any other team in the East that might have to go through Tampa to get the ultimate prize.
Since the NHL trade deadline, Andrei Vasilevsky is 9-2-1 with a .922 save percentage, tied for the most wins in the league with Jake Ottinger. The Dallas Stars, amazing what they're doing out west. Shout out to Dallas Stars and, of course, Locked On Stars. Locked On every team, every day. Your local experts on the biggest stories. This is the time of year where it's scoreboard watching season. So why not earn a little more knowledge about these teams around the National Hockey League? So if you're a fan of one of the teams in the playoff race, go check out the other Locked On shows. Give them a good luck. Wink, wink in the comments. Make sure to engage, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We are also available on YouTube. We will discuss those teams on the other side. We'll also It's a sad story. It's a sad story. The NHL is reportedly, per Daily Faceoff, doing 2 versions of next year's NHL schedule with one team in 2 separate locations. That story on the other side as well. You're listening to Locked On NHL, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. You need to hire? You need Indeed. Indeed is the only hiring platform I trust when I want to get quality candidates that I know will have all of my must-have job requirements. With Indeed, they want you to build a team with top talent, and they don't want you spending hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skill. You can get it all with Indeed. You can also find it fast because Indeed has a powerful set of hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applicants that match your must-have requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Go join the over 3 million businesses worldwide that are using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Go check them out. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Welcome back, Locked On NHL. We are your team every day, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we have local experts on the biggest stories. You can find me 5 days a week over at Locked On Senators. My name is Ross Levitan. That is Mike DeStefano over at Locked On Toronto Maple Leafs. The Leafs basically locked into a playoff series against the Florida Panthers, and there's 2 ways the Florida Panthers have looked in the last 2 weeks. They've looked not great, And then they've played Ottawa, where they have 8-0 advantage in 2 games against the Senators. Mikey, we talked about this more on Locked On Senators. I know the Senators do not belong in the conversation about the playoffs, but this stat just popped out because we've talked about the Keith Tkachuk interview many times. He called the Panthers soft after the Senators beat them 5-2, right? Well, they played 5 times since then. The Panthers are 5-0 with a plus 19 goal differential in 5 games, and they've shut Ottawa out 3 out of 5 of the games. You think they took that personally?
I do believe they took that personally, for sure. Like, way more personal than Michael Jordan never took anything, in my
Plus
opinion.
19 goal differential in 5 games, dude.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Yeah,
I hate it.
The Panthers absolutely. There's a bit of a, I don't know if it's. I mean, it is a rivalry because you got the Kachuk brothers going
Yep.
up against each other, but then like it turned into team versus team. When Walt called out the Panthers for being soft, and well,
You think they got
it
another
worked
run in
for
them?
it worked for Florida. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the Florida Panthers. Like, can they? Yeah, sure. Look what they did. They've got a really deep team. They've got guys who can score. They've got Bobrovsky who can, if he can turn back into what he was last year in the playoffs, yeah, they could make a run. But they do have to get back to playing, that hard physical style of hockey that allows them to find success. I feel like they've kind of gotten away from that a little bit. Some may say that it's just, end of season blues, and they're just kind of waiting to get to the postseason to, get back to playing at 100%, pedal to the metal again. And once that happens, good luck, because that's when they're definitely the scariest. But also, like, Aaron Ekblad's pretty much missed the final month of the season. He came back for a few games and got hurt again. I think his absence is obviously huge to this team that has always kind of had a bit of a weaker blue line. They've been able to, kind of get through it, especially last year in the playoffs. But Ekblad's just a little bit too big of an injury to overcome, I think. So I think it'll depend on his health. He is expected to return for the playoffs, but how healthy is he actually going to be? That's the question that I would have before, laying any wagers down on FanDuel on the Panthers.
And I'm really curious to see what happens with Sergei Bobrovsky. He was scheduled to start in the game last night, didn't, and took warmups, but didn't take any shots. So not sure what's going on there, whether they just really want to be cautious with him. I mean, Anthony Stolarz, him and Laurent Brossoit, the 2 best backups in the league. And I don't think it's any surprise, too, that they're playing on the 2 best defensive teams. Those 2 are going head-to-head. Talk about battles. The Jennings Trophy up for grabs with the team who allows the fewest goals per game. Both those teams great on the defensive side of the puck. All right, the battle that is the 3rd spot in the Metropolitan, as well as the final spot in the wild card. So let's get to that right now. Here, we'll pull up on YouTube if you're watching. I've got the standings right here. Perfect. And we've got the Islanders currently sitting in that spot. Great game last night. Huge win. They got out to a big lead, had to hang on. The Rangers push, but I don't think it's really possible unless the Rangers cool down further and Carolina goes on a run. But wouldn't the Battle of New York be awesome for playoffs? Anyways, that's just a pipe dream. Right now, I think it's just for the Islanders hoping to get in with 15 overtime losses, only 36 wins. The other teams in the mix, Washington is in that spot as we wake up on Wednesday morning. So the team that's in the spot in the Metropolitan, Mikey, 15 overtime losses. The team that's in the second wild card spot, a minus 40 goal differential.
It's just unbelievable where things are at right now. It is a very intriguing race, though, and it seems like every night teams are leaving valuable points on the board. Like we saw Detroit do the other night, last night. Penguins when they lost in overtime, giving up a point to Toronto that has come back to kind of bite them, I guess. Every single night it's must watch. And the cool thing is, like, a lot of these teams still are going to be playing against one another in the final 4 games of the season. Like the final week, you're going to see a couple of big time matchups. Like you've got Pittsburgh playing both Detroit and the Islanders. You've got Washington playing Philly at some point here. You've got the Islanders still, obviously just talked about, they've got another game against the Penguins. So you've got a lot of these teams that are going to be battling it out, and they're going to be very, very important games to try and pull points off of one another to get themselves into the playoffs. It's going to be one hell of a finish to this race.
And I mean, we could be talking about Detroit in this spot if it weren't for last night's final score of 2-1, right down to the wire. And I know that Detroit got their goal with 2 seconds left. Shout out Patrick Kane, by the way, because when he was signing, everyone's like, oh, nobody's really like come back from that surgery and been effective. 20 goals, and he's played just over half the year. Like, that's something that he should be pretty proud of at his he's still Showtime, man. He still is. So the Red Wings are still in it, but they don't control their own destiny anymore. Washington does. They all have 78 games. Pittsburgh's right in the mix as well. They've been playing better of late. Like, selfishly, I'd love for either Ovechkin or Crosby to make one. Like, we're in the twilight of how many years left we're going to see them making big runs.
Both of them to make it. Like, you're talking selfishly, ideally, Washington and Pittsburgh can both overcome, New York, the gap that's in New York. I don't see it happening. I think New York at this point, with 87 points, I think there's a strong chance that they probably end up making the playoffs now, either in that third spot or with a wild card position. Like I said, going forward, with their final few games, they've got the Rangers one more time, and then they've got Montreal, the Devils without Jack Hughes, and Pittsburgh. So, and that game could be like, so the Pittsburgh Islanders game is the final game of the regular season. And that ultimately could decide, like, which one of these two teams make the playoffs, or which one of these two teams end up with the third spot as opposed to the wild card spot. There could be some massive implications on that game on the last night of the NHL regular season.
Let us know in the comments who you have winning this year's final playoff spots, both in the wild card and in the Metropolitan Division. On the other side, we will discuss the free fall of the Philadelphia Flyers, losers of 8 straight games. And is it all she wrote for Arizona in the desert? Those conversations are next. You're listening to Locked On NHL, your team every day.
Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Price on the Gametime app actually go down closer it gets to first pitch with killer last-minute deals, all in prices, views from receipt, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They've got last-minute ticket deals. You can save up to 60% off of buying your last-minute tickets for sports, comedy events, concerts, theater, whichever. They've got flash deals, zone deals, all in pricing, and the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of your difference. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I used the app today. I bought myself some Jays tickets for the matinee game against the Seattle Mariners. What did I do? Hopped on the Gametime app, found tickets. I'm 15 rows behind home plate. $25. $25, 15 rows from home plate. Found them on Gametime. Used my $20 off using the code LOCKEDONNHL. I will be excited for that matchup in that game later on tonight. So, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Welcome back to Locked On NHL. I'm Ross Levitan over from Locked On Ottawa Senators. Here every Wednesday, we talk the Eastern Conference. That's Mike DiStefano from Locked On Toronto Maple Leafs. We have local experts on the biggest stories. And my goodness, Rachel Donner, Russ Cohen, they've had a tough time in the last couple of weeks. The Philadelphia Flyers are struggling. Now, this was free money for Daniel Briere. I think he would admit that this year. But once you're in the race, you've gotten this far, to fall off the way they have. I mean, that must be just tough on the Flyers, and they haven't just been losing. last night, Uri Slavkovsky gets a first career hat trick for him. He is a whole other story. I'm sure Locked On Habs just drooling over his progression of late. But 9-3, like there's losses, and then there's just getting run out of the building. Hey, say something nice about the Flyers. If you're gonna lose 9-3, do it on the road.
Oh, I guess. Yeah, I suppose you don't want to do it in definitely do not want to do it inside their building. They may not make it to their cars if that were the case, but yeah, it's really been a tough go for them. Just looking at it since the trade deadline, where the Flyers were cemented into a playoff spot, and they thought that they were going to be competitive and maybe sneak one in. There's talks, should John Tortorella be getting some love for the Jack Adams? Well, since then they've gone 3-9-3. They've only scored 37 goals in 15 games. They've given up 71. That is realistically the biggest issue here is, the goaltending is falling apart. They brought in that Ivan Fedotov kid from Russia, but he hasn't been able to get it done. Samuel Urson has not been able to get it done. 4.73 goals against per game since the All-Star break. But I don't know if this has anything to do with it, or if the Flyers have folded, if the locker room's kind of spoiled or what. But it does seem like a lot of, if you look back on when things started to unravel, it does kind of line up with the whole John Tortorella scratch and Sean Couturier situation. And I wonder if that has had a lasting impact, negative impact on how things have kind of shaken out here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, it makes sense that it wouldn't go over too well in the locker. This guy's just named captain. He's the leader of the team, all those things. And I think it's just tough, but it's also what Torts' MO is. It's not like you're going to teach an old dog new tricks, right? That's who he is. And he's gotten this team to overperform for the majority of the season. So I think when you look at it,
Do you lose, like, when you look at how ugly it's been down the stretch and the Tortsisms, the rants that he's made over the last couple of weeks, whether it was about his captain or it was about, Urson when he went off on the goaltender, did they lose all that good faith that they had built earlier in the season?
I don't think so. I think you're just looking at a team that frankly isn't there yet. And they're going to be good. They've got a great prospect pool. We know Matvei Michkov's kind of their ace in the hole who's going to come over in the next couple of years from Russia. But
Right.
like they don't have a single player who's a point per game. Not even close, really. Like Konechny's got 65 points, and then their next highest score is 53. Like you're not gonna be a top team unless you have a star. We're seeing that all across, like these teams that are in the mix, like Crosby's willing the Pittsburgh Penguins to be in the hunt.
Let me rephrase the question, because I think I went at it from a team perspective, where I think I meant to go at it maybe from a Tortorella perspective. Like, has his reputation and maybe your viewpoint on him and his future in Philadelphia changed over the last couple of weeks with the antics that he's made, the decision to sit Couturier, the decision to, call out his goaltenders, his very young goalies, walk it back, and then, kind of go at the media again. Like, has all of that encompassing over the last month kind of changed your viewpoint on him and his future in Philadelphia going forward? Or is what he did at the beginning of the season, enough to kind of save face going into next year?
Well, I think he gets another year, no doubt. I mean, this guy was in the Jack Adams conversation for a lot of the year. I think that for such a small sample to
But if he's
sway
lost the room,
No.
with that Couturier situation,
I think Daniel Briere and the rest of the management wants their team to play the way that Torts wants them to play. I think it's more likely that if Torts singles out a guy who he doesn't think is going to be a part of the solution, that you see them move on from that player this offseason versus the team. I'm not saying Couturier in particular. He's sacked guys before and then put them back on the top line. So I don't think I'd go that far, but I think that you're looking at an organization that it was no mistake that a new regime puts in John Tortorella as the head coach. They're not going to change it this quickly, I don't think.
Yeah, we'll see.
They will.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I saw a quote that I think they came out yesterday and said that he's not going anywhere. But
Yeah. Oh, it was an hour ago. It was Darren Dreger. We can all appreciate the speculation when it comes to John Tortorella. There's always speculation. As for his future as head coach, a Flyers management source says Torts is not leaving the bench. He still has the fire.
Yeah, I just still think that the Couturier situation still rubbed me the wrong way, and I'm sure many people in that locker room. And I guess time heals all wounds. Maybe by the start of next season, bygones will be bygones, and maybe that locker room can get tight again and try and make another run next year. We'll see.
What's more likely, John Tortorella coaching the Flyers for 2 more seasons, because we've already acknowledged he'll be back next year, or the Arizona Coyotes playing next season in Phoenix?
In Phoenix specifically?
Arizona.
Boy,
I know. I feel bad for Locked On Coyotes. It's almost like I was so sick with Ottawa talking every day about the ownership, all the dips and doodles there. I can't imagine the possibility of losing the team.
They've been talking about this since the moment Locked On Coyotes started up 5 years ago. God, that's a good question. Like, can I say neither? I don't think either are going to happen. Tortorella. It's more likely Tortorella is going to be more of a long-term fixture in Philadelphia than I think the Coyotes will in Arizona. There was a report today coming out from Frank Saravalli of Daily Faceoff, essentially saying the NHL is going about making the schedule twice. They're doing it 2 times, one with the Coyotes in Arizona, and apparently one with the Coyotes in Salt Lake City, with the possibility of a relocation over the summer, bringing the Coyotes to Salt Lake. And that seems like it is picking up some steam here, Ross.
And not only that, but the owner, Ryan Smith, the most known Ryan Smith in the hockey world.
Yeah, for sure.
Pause. No, Ryan Smith owns the
Jazz.
He owns the Utah Jazz. Shout out to David Locke. He of Locked On fame, the voice of the Utah Jazz. So, hey, that it'd be great to know if it is it a hockey city? I'm curious. But the owner, Ryan Smith, just randomly tweeted out 2 days ago, if an NHL team were to come to Utah, what should we name it? Fill out this survey and send in your ideas. You don't do that unless you're getting an NHL team. What if we get a team? And Ian Mendes of The Athletic was in Salt Lake City this week. One-on-one conversation with Ryan Smith. All these things, they're getting a team. It's a matter of when, not if, and how. Right. Is it going to be expansion, or are the Coyotes going to move there? I jokingly told Pillsy, I said they should call them the Salt Lake City Coyotes.
Why not?
Keep the name. There's no Coyotes in Utah, I don't believe. I could be wrong on that. They're probably they're Coyotes everywhere.
I think when I think Salt Lake, I think kind of foresty. No, is it not? There's like a foresty space in Salt Lake, Utah. I think. I don't know. I could be completely wrong. I have no idea. But
welcome to Coyote Country. From Wild Aware, Utah is the first article that comes up. They can be found throughout the United States and are quite common in Utah. So, -1 for me.
So it would make sense to keep the name as the Coyotes, the Utah Coyotes. I mean, look, Arizona's had ample opportunity to keep that team within that state, right? Like they've asked.
It's such a fast-growing market, though. They don't have a place to play. I truly believe if you build it, they will come. Think about it. It's a transient state too.
For who though? Like, why is it fast-growing? Like, why
everyone's moving from California for all the now the prices of Arizona real estate and everything are going higher and higher. But it used to be kind of just this desert area, but now everybody's flocking from California into Houston and Texas and Arizona.
But they're putting their entertainment dollars into the Diamondbacks. They're putting their entertainment dollars into the Coyotes or into the Cardinals, into the Arizona State basketball team. Like, that's the problem, I think, with Arizona. It's just not a hockey market. It's not. It's the desert. Ice and desert. It just doesn't go together. And Gary Bettman has tried for so long to make it work. And it's obvious that it hasn't been able to work. They haven't been able to find the right ownership to make it work. I guess it's not that it can't and that it will never work, but they just haven't been able to find the right people who want to give it its proper attention to try and make it work. Like obviously Alex Marullo, they thought that he was going to be the right person to keep hockey in the desert. Well, the guy wasn't signing paychecks. Like they got locked out of their arena and had to go and set up shop at a college dormitory. Like it's embarrassing what happened. And so another thing that was part of the report here about the possible relocation is like Marullo still his goal is to keep things in Arizona, and they are going to be bidding on a plot of land that's going to be in Scottsdale. I believe June 27th is the date of that the bid ends, but there's a possibility that they could come to terms on a relocation prior to that. So I'm not sure how things are going to play out, but if I had to make a wager on it today, I'd probably lean towards the team leaving Arizona and going to Salt Lake next season, as opposed to it sticking around.
The one thing that's for sure is this auction that's happening is their last chance to get a place for the Coyotes to play full time. So we'll be tracking that story. For more on it, go check out Locked On Arizona Coyotes. For today, we say goodbye. That's Mike DeStefano. I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of Locked On NHL. The next time we talk, it'll be the last day of the regular season. We'll have our playoff preview, a whole lot more. Stay locked on NHL wherever you get your podcast. Also available on YouTube. For more, go download Locked On Maple Leafs, Locked On Senators, and go check out all the great shows on the Locked On NHL podcast. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.